Зараз буду, зараз пишу.
It's August 16, Ukraine Media Center confirms starts its operation, and my name is Svetlana Cheparenko. Now we will have a presentation of the summary of work of the Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine and Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office for the first half of the year 2022. The results will be represented by the heads of NABU and SAPO, Semen, Kryvonos, and Oleksandr Klymenko, the head of Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office. But before we proceed to the discussion, let's watch a short video. The first part of the year 2022, the both agencies intensified the scale of investigations, identified the participants of the criminal organization machinating with the state property of Ukraine. The Supreme Anti-Corruption Court put a period in a number of cases regarding one of the former prosecutors of the Chief Prosecutor's Office, former judge of the Dnipro Regional Court, more judges from Dnipro, and in the first half of the year 2023, 58 cases were forwarded to the court, 147 perpetrators condemned, and 16 persons were sentenced. 6.7 billion hryvnias reimbursed under the prosecutions within the prosecutor's office. Within the last half of the year, we've seen a lot of many loud cases, so let's talk about the summary of the work of the anti-corruption agency. So let's give the floor to Mr. Semen Kryvonos. It's my pleasure to see all the representatives of the mass media here. It's an extremely important presentation for us, the presentation of the summary for the first half of the year 2023. We've achieved significant results, and given the conditions of the full-scale aggression, given the conditions of the war, we're sure that there is no place for corruption here, and we're supposed to increase the intensity. We're supposed to identify the corruptioners, and we focus on those corruption schemes that are occurring right now. This is the top priority for us. Our priorities are the spheres of recovery, energy sector, defense sector, and so on. So within the first half of the year, we identified a deputy minister for development of communities on embezzlement of funds. The funds were embezzled, which were supposed to be forwarded for the reimbursement, for the compensation of consequences of enemies' attacks. There were some people's deputies identified as corruptioners, and there is a high-scale corruption scheme in the Supreme Court was detected. Within the first half of the year, we brought back to the state budget 1,688,000,000 hryvnias. Those numbers say that we have a significant economic effect, and this amount exceeds the expenditures for National Anti-Corruption Bureau. We continue supporting the armed forces, the defense forces. So thanks to the Anti-Corruption Agency and Special Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office, we forwarded almost 2 billion hryvnias for the needs of the armed forces of Ukraine. We're trying to find reserves inside our institutions. We know we have limited resources. We've optimized the operation of our agency. We freed 20 more positions, and we reinforce those units which take direct part in investigation of crimes. There are contests for 34 more detective positions, and there were new units expanded in the city of Dnipro. We communicate with the international partners, with the society. We communicate about the necessity of expansion of the agency. We need to create the expert council at the National Anti-Corruption Bureau and to increase its institutional capacity. And ultimately, we're working starting from the year 2019 as envisaged by the government to establish the autonomous independent TAP. And this is the first presentation of mine on this position. It's my pride. I take pride in every member of our team, every detective, every employee of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau, because it's really a dream team. I want to also emphasize on the close cooperation with the Special Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office and Mr. Klymenko, and I want to thank the support of the media who help us expose the corruption. We want to thank the international partners. More to follow. Thank you, Mr. Semen. Mr. Oleksandr, the floor is yours. Please tell us about the work of the Special Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office within the last half a year. Thank you very much, dear journalists, dear colleagues. On the 28th of July, it was my year in the office. A little bit more than 5 months is Mr. Semen in the office, and we have all reasons to say that the first half of the year 2023 brought the most results within the history of the existence of Special Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office. We filed 58 cases to the Special Anti-Corruption Court within this period. Also, within this period, the judges of Special Anti-Corruption Court came up with 38 awards regarding 42 corruptioners. And given those trends, given our indicators in the future, I can be brave enough to say that the year 2023 will be the most fruitful for all the years of activity of our two agencies. So within this reporting period, Anti-Corruption Agency and Special Anti-Corruption Office exposed a criminal organization headed by the former head of the Fund of National Property of Ukraine, and the case was filed to the court regarding so-called Formula Rotterdam Plus. It's just the first episode. Also, the detectives and other employees made other significant exposures of the corruptioners. We're moving into the direction of civil confiscation as well. We filed 4 cases about confiscation of assets, and we've got the first victory in the courts already. The confiscated funds and the funds that were paid by the perpetrators upon the results of the agreements were directly forwarded to the liquidation of the occupiers. The funds confiscated by the Special Anti-Corruption Court were the first ones to finance the Army of Drones platform, the Army of Drones project on the United 24 platforms. Those drones are already on the battlefields. They destroy both enemies and their material. All those results listed, which were achieved by Special Anti-Corruption Office, are achieved by a little bit more than 40 prosecutors. 13 prosecutors joined the armed forces of Ukraine, which is almost 30% of the total number of our prosecutors. We have some talent pool deficit, I would say. We try to solve this problem in part by increasing the number of vacant positions Recently, the Prosecutor General added more vacant positions to our office, 7 of them, and soon we are about to announce the contest for those positions, but that's not enough in my opinion, because we have still a lot of work to do and the amount of work keeps growing exponentially. For example, due to the according to the last study, the most latency in the corruption crimes, those are the crimes that are not listed in any statistics. So we want to ensure the inevitability of punishment for any crime, and for this we need to increase our potential, both human resources and potential and technical potential. There is a draft law registered in the Parliament 8402 which solves most of the problems the Special Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office is facing. So increasing our administrative capacity will allow us to more effectively react to those challenges that Ukraine is facing during reconstruction, during the end of the war. So that's a very important issue. I want to thank all the prosecutors of the Special Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office for the fruitful cooperation, and thanks everybody for your attention. Thank you, Mr. Oleksandr. I will give the floor to the journalists so they can ask their questions. Dear colleagues, please. Good morning, Svetlana Tkachuk, Ukrinform. I'm having a question to Mr. Oleksandr and a couple of questions to Mr. Semen. Mr. Oleksandr, if I can, you were saying that the investigation of the case about the bribe by the head of the court, Kyiv, is being finalized. What can you tell us whether we should expect the end of the investigation this year? Yes, there was a hearing by the prosecutors recently, and really the case is being finalized. I think that in the beginning of September we are about to finalize investigation, specifically this episode of investigation where the head of the court is about to be served the note of suspicion regarding other facts of corruption and involvement of other facts. The investigation is underway still. Mr. Maxim, my first question will be like that. NABU was emphasizing that they need to expand the staff, and the relevant draft was registered with the Parliament. So what is the progress with it? I have to double check that draft law to fulfill the state anti-corruption program and the expansion of anti-corruption infrastructure are all contemplated by the anti-corruption program approved by the government. And to fulfill this program, we have developed the draft law and we've submitted it as the proposal from the National Anti-Corruption Bureau with the proposal to have it registered. For the time being, I don't have any information about its registration. It's with the Anti-Corruption Committee, so I expect it to be registered and to be voted shortly. So it contemplates expansion of the staff and creation of the expert council with the National Anti-Corruption Agency. Mr. Semen, another question. So how many investigations are already approved for the Great Construction Project, and when can we expect the finalization of the investigation? Well, as to the number of the examinations, you know, it's a number of infrastructure projects. We have a number of criminal cases. I cannot tell you about the exact number of investigations within every single case, but they are underway within the most resonant cases, and after we get some preliminary summaries, we can start talking about people involved in those cases and the suspects. By the way, there are already some suspects in those cases on infrastructure projects implemented within the years 21, 22, and 23, so we will report to the public as appropriate. And I'm having my last question to Mr. Semen. I'm sorry, have the economic investigation ended in the case of appropriation of funds by Ukernafta company? Well, look, I am not going to announce the suspects until those suspects are being served the notices of suspicion. We don't announce things like those, but the pretrial investigation is in progress, and we hope that we will be able to communicate about the substance, about the amount of losses, and about the progress in this case as well. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Sorry, just a second. You take a translator.
Будь ласка, одну секунду.
Yes, okay, please, your question.
My name is Lorenzo Cremonesi, special envoy for Corriere della Sera from Italy, from Milano. So I have two questions to whoever wants to answer. The first one starts with a little story. I have a friend who is with a group of volunteers, and they bring different items for soldiers on the front. She was telling me yesterday that a few months ago they were bringing in drones from abroad. They were buying drones on the free market in Europe, bringing drones to Ukraine for the soldiers, for military purpose. Well, your border guards stopped them. They were supposed to wait 2-3 days because of procedures, and they were told that if they would have given one drone free to the guard, as a kind of payment, as a kind of corruption payment, and they would have had the drone in very quickly, as it happened. So my question following this remark is, can you tell us a bit about, my impression is that you have a problem with your border guards units. I mean, there is a lot of corruption going on the border. Question of paying people, soldiers who don't want to, men who don't want to serve, pay to get out, etc., etc. So can you tell us some data? Do you have any investigation? And what these people can do? I mean, if an organization bring in drone for the soldier, volunteer with their own money, and they have to pay a bribe to have the drone in, it's amazing, isn't it? And the second question is, following this remark, this first question, my impression having been in this last year and a half, and especially in the last months on the front, Kherson, Bakhmut, Chasiv, you name it, all the front on the south of Zaporizhia, I can see soldiers being very disappointed. I mean, it never happened to me as in the last months, and maybe also because of the problem with the counteroffensive, soldier telling me as a foreign journalist, hey, instead of being here covering us, you should stay in the central government to see about the fight of corruption. Don't you feel that this question of corruption is really affecting the morale of your troops on the front line? Thank you.
У мене запитання зустрічне пану журналісту. Чи ваш друг, коли стикнувся з пропозицією надати хабаря офіцеру?
Has your friend, when he was reporting it to the law enforcement agencies, that he was demanded that bribe? Yes, we know. We focus our attention about the corruption in the border. We investigate a number of cases related to the custom processing of different goods at lower price with the assistance of the customs officials. We expose different schemes regarding the movement of goods in both sides of the border, and what you're saying is absolutely unacceptable. When a person brought the drones for our defense, for our armed forces, and someone tries to extort bribes from them, I want to say that you should immediately send a signal to National Anti-Corruption Bureau. We will pay attention to it, and we investigate similar crimes. You know what's going on in the customs when custom inspectors or some other border guard officials right there at the checkpost, they extort bribes. If it's a systemic phenomenon, we investigate crimes like that. But I think that the whole law enforcement system should work to expose such corruption, and specifically in the customs area there should be systemic reforms that should remove such possibility to extort any bribes from volunteers who bring something for the armed forces. What I want to add is that the study fulfilled by the National Agency for countering corruption demonstrates that for Ukrainians, for businesses, that the corruption is most widespread in the customs sphere and in the judicial sphere. And as Mr. Semen says, that one-time action of customs officials that does not exceed the 500 minimum salaries is the responsibility of State Investigation Bureau. Our responsibility is the systemic corruption, something that when some crimes are committed that are of threat to our national interests and the sovereignty of Ukraine. And in response to the second question, obviously corruption is evil we should be fighting with. So exactly for that purpose, to support our armed forces for our victory in the war, we keep saying that we have to reinforce the anti-corruption infrastructure, because thanks to those who are in the front lines, we have this opportunity now to live, to work, to survive as the country and to preserve our independence. So it's our duty, both anti-corruption agencies and law enforcement agencies, to take maximum effort to destroy the corruption. So this is why we will reinforce our results thanks to your support as well.
Then I finish. Just to follow up to your remarks, which, okay, I understand that you have to fight, but practically, a private person who who really taste directly the problem of corruption, did you organize, I don't know, a green line, a telephone, a possible, you say these people have to call but the normal citizen doesn't know what to do, really. And do you have a way now for a normal citizen or a soldier who feel there is a problem of corruption at the recruitment center to call your authority, say, hey, I have a problem? Did you do anything practical apart, big declaration, which of course are important, but the substance is not changing much? Thank you.
Дякую за питання. Ми ще раз підкреслимо те, про
Thank you for your question. I want to emphasize once again what the head of the Special Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office was saying. We are investigating the corruption by the top government officials and talking about those cases when people cross the border, the corruption in amounts that don't fall under responsibility of our agencies. We don't investigate such crimes because it's the responsibility of the National Policy and State Investigation Agency, because we investigate the corruption as to the legislation that stipulates our activity. But on our website there are telephone numbers, emails. Obviously, we react to the applications of the citizens. We have investigations which were based upon the reports by the applicants, specifically exposition of corruption during the acquisition of illegal proceeds. So those who are facing the extortion of some money, and if the amount of such money exceeds, or if this person who extorts falls under responsibility of our agencies, we detain such persons and we investigate such crimes.
To ask a question which follows up on the previous question to an extent. So you've been saying that you're dealing only with the top officials and bribes of magnitude that is big enough for you to deal with it. So given that recently all the heads of military enlistment offices were sacked by the president, or he announced that they're going to be sacked, how do you assess the magnitude and the character of the corruption in military enlistment system?
Again, the enlistment officers do not fall under our responsibility unless the amount of bribe exceeds some amount stipulated by the law. In fact, we had a criminal investigation regarding the illegal enrichment of this Odessa enlistment officer. This is why we handed it over to the State Investigation Bureau, because we cannot act in violation of the law and investigate something that we're not supposed to investigate. Talking about those enlistment crimes, we had similar investigations in the area of evasion of mobilization, but we were investigating it in case when many people were involved or huge amounts were involved. So when such amounts are smaller, we hand such cases over to the State Investigation Bureau. So the last cases that were communicated by the State Security Service and State Investigation Bureau, the amounts were ranged from $5,000 to $10,000. Those amounts do not fall under our responsibility of National Anti-Corruption Bureau. If we identify that the amount of illegal proceeds does not reach to that amount which falls under our responsibility, we hand them over to other agencies. And the same situation for the special ranks, the heads of the enlistment offices, they don't fall under our responsibility because they are not in the ranks of generals, for example. This is why we don't investigate those types of crimes. Good morning, I'm a correspondent of Latvian radio. I have a question to Mr. Kryvonos. What's your evaluation of the scale of corruption in Ukraine, and how many people are now under the microscope of National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine? I would say about the areas that are under our observation. No, there are areas where the corruption in some spheres due to the beginning of the full-scale invasion was decreased due to some reforms like digitalization or maybe the decrease of the business activity, but there are spheres where the corruption risks has grown, and the last surveys that Mr. Oleksandr has mentioned has grown, like in judicial sphere, defense sector, the customs, because significant amount of funds that are income and they result in some corruption risks. But again, we investigate all those crimes within our focus. We prioritize our activity and we forward key resources to investigation of those crimes and overcoming of this systemic corruption. Well, talking about the areas we work in, again, it's the tax administration, customs, recovery sector, judicial sphere. So our last cases, they demonstrate where we focus our attention at. We have question for another question. Denis Bulansky. I have a question regarding the draft law 7402. There was a working team to develop and discuss it, but they say that it was cancelled in the committee. Why do you think, why in your opinion there are delays with adoption of this draft law? Well, the working group was created only on paper. We got a number of investigations to provide the candidates for such team. Why this draft law is not adopted and was right away, like you say, buried in the committee, I don't know. But if we see the more efficient results of countering corruption, we should provide more independence, more administrative independence to specialized anti-corruption prosecutor's office, and we demonstrate that we can work better, and we say they'll give us more tools and we will be able to achieve more fighting corruption. Thank you. And another small question about the phone of Knyazov. Knyazov's phone is currently blocked. It's within the facilities of National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, and the detectives investigate the information on the phone. They were reporting me that when the note of suspicion was served to the former head of the court, so in that case this phone cannot be an evidence, but it can serve as an evidence in other cases related to the Supreme Court. Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank our speakers. Joining us were Semen Kryvonos and Oleksandr Klymenko, the heads of National Anti-Corruption Bureau and Special Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office. They were reporting about their work within the first half of the year 2022. Ukraine Media Center will continue its operation tomorrow. Stay tuned.